Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Velo Podcast with me, Mike Levy, and him, Alvin Holbrook, who just got back from everybody's favorite bicycle trade show, the Taipei Cycle Show. Now, Velo had Jessie Mae Morgan, Shoddy Dave, and Alvin there to wander all 4 floors and all never-ending aisles. And this place, it's my favorite show because it's always packed full of some of the craziest stuff, some stuff that we don't ever see in North America or even in Europe, some stuff that's way, way out there, and some stuff that doesn't even make any sense. That's just fun to see, and everything else in between. So our plan today, we're going to ask Alvin questions about the show, about some crazy carbon fiber wheels, Alvin, that had a mother of pearl, like an abalone finish on them. I'm going to ask you about aero cranks for the gainz, because if you're going to wear aero socks, you got to wear aero cranks, maybe, or have aero cranks, I should say. We're going to talk about a crankset that claims to add 50% more power to your power. That sounds like cheating,
brother.
I like it.
Yeah, I've got a lot to talk about there.
And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about 2 drivetrain companies out of China, Wheeltop and L-Twoo. They both have wireless drivetrains, and they've been updating and working on them over the years. And Alvin's got to tinker with the latest versions of both. But first, Alvin, I need to know about the dumpling situation and the food situation in general. How much good food did you eat in Taiwan? Because for me, that's my favorite part of the trip.
Oh, it's so tough when I'm there because I feel like I get so caught up in like the bikes of it all and that type of thing.
Work getting in the way. God damn.
Exactly. And I'm not going to lie. There was one night, so I spent one evening with Turn because I was able to spend some time on their GSD cargo bike, which we'll have that first ride up soon. We had tacos that night.
Oh,
we got
funny?
Tacos, which was wild. We also got Thai food one night because it was so easy, I guess.
Yeah.
I went out and got like dumplings several times, but the most consistent thing for me, the thing that I did every night, was hit some sort of night market at some point.
Yes.
And that is such a huge component of like understanding, I think, Taiwanese culture. Like I'm very much at the surface level. Like I know so little, but like you know this better than almost anyone. Like you show up and it's 11 p.m. and somehow that place is jam packed and there's fresh food everywhere, smells you wouldn't believe. Like
some of them less good than others, but a lot of them very
some
good.
that I'm not used to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
not necessarily good or bad, but stuff that I'm not necessarily accustomed to.
Yeah,
I had skewered squid like 3 times. That was
spicy.
Yeah. One of them was spicy. It was actually really good. That one was awesome.
Yeah,
but it was just kind of like I don't know the next time I'm going to have this type of thing. This trip I came to really love stinky tofu. It's like,
oh really?
You try it?
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, had it like 3 times.
Can you describe
for folks
stinky
not
tofu?
Sorry?
Describe stinky tofu for us?
Yeah, exactly. So my understanding of the process is that it's tofu that's left out and it's allowed to ferment, basically. And there's mold that grows on it effectively. They scrape off the mold and the tofu becomes a slightly different color. And that gives it like this smell and kind of funkiness to its taste that on its own, I don't know if I would love, but when it's fried and it's like put in spicy like powders and whatnot, is awesome. I couldn't get enough of it. Like crazy. It's so like inexpensive, which I mean, some might say, oh, well, it's tofu. It's been left out to mold. Of course it's going to be inexpensive, but there is work that's put into it. Like, and it is delicious. It's legitimately delicious, I think.
Yeah. The taste isn't like the smell. Like you can, if for people that haven't been there, you could smell a stinky tofu cart from like half a kilometer away. It's quite strong, you know, but it doesn't. To be fair, I've only ever had one bite many years ago, but it tasted nothing like the smell. It tasted a lot better, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say like this year, because I think the latter half of the show, there's precipitation or the threat of rain, and so the night markets weren't nearly as busy as they might normally be. But that just means that you can walk through them somewhat freely. Whereas
Yeah, exactly.
a fully functioning night market, like you can't really walk around just
Yeah,
because
no,
it's
it's
so
so busy.
packed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that you really love. Jesse May and I went to go look for frogs. We went
Oh,
to do some frog hunting. That didn't really work out, but we heard some frogs, and that
wait, were you
was
gonna
great.
eat to eat or
No,
just to
no,
catch? Because they
just to
lots
catch,
of
just
people.
to check
Oh,
them
okay,
out.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just to check them out. We wouldn't do that, but we hung out with a bunch of cats. There are a lot of cats in the forests, and
Little forest kitties, Taiwanese
yeah,
forest kitties. I will say
yeah.
it's also the friendliest country that I've personally ever been to. I don't know if you agree, but people are so nice.
They're extremely friendly, I would say, and like, I had tried to learn a couple words to facilitate the process, but people are just so nice and
Yeah.
they attempt to be really accommodating. And yeah, no, it's a fun show, but it's also just a fun destination and one that I'm glad to have gone to for my
Yep.
second year. So,
How is the show different than a Eurobike or a Sea Otter? What do you expect to see at a Taipei Cycle Show versus a more traditional trade show in Europe or in North America?
oh, so this is a really good question. And I do cover this in kind of my like four trends that I noticed at Taipei Cycle Show piece that is up now on the site. And one of the key things is that for years, Taipei Cycle Show, and you've been there far more than I have, and even far like many more years prior to me. But the way I think of Taipei Cycle Show for the longest time is that it's less like finished products that you might get at like a Eurobike or a Sea Otter or something like that. And it's more so the ingredients. So what you're seeing a lot of the time is like the cooks going to the farmer's market and getting the raw ingredients to put stuff together. Whereas
Hmm.
Eurobike is the cooks or the bike company is saying, here's our finished product. Take a look at it.
Yep.
That being said, I do think that there was a bit of a shift. And I think one of the trends this year or one of the trends that I recognize this year is that like this year more than ever, there are more finalized products and less like factories and manufacturers like on display. There's less of that esoteric stuff and more things that felt legitimately finalized and ready to sell.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a couple different things. Frankly, I think just Asia as a whole is becoming more confident in its ability to market itself. And you see that with its high-end gear, like just the sheer number of like high-end stuff at Taipei Cycle Show this year was more than last year.
Yeah.
I think part of it also is just these factories also hedging against like stagnating demand from the West
Yeah.
for bike parts. Like it's no secret that of like people all the time talk about doom and gloom in the bike industry. And last year, one of the takeaways that I had was that like people were hopeful in the bike industry, at least at Taipei Cycle Show, that things were going to be good. This year, it felt like people were kind of in a holding pattern. And based on what I have talked with people who work in the industry and who are talking with the factories and that type of thing, the factories are really eager to get stuff going. They're willing to make more deals than they have in years past, especially like even pre-COVID. Um, and to me, that indicates that they need business.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, like you said, that's one of the reasons why we're seeing more high-end bike companies come from Asia. It's these factories like doing their own thing. For
Yeah,
example, those nice looking trigons. Am I pronouncing it right?
yeah. Trigon. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it depends on who you ask. If you ask GCN Tech, they call it Trigun. But
Okay.
when I had talked
We'll
with
pronounce it differently then.
yeah, we'll call it Trigon.
Yeah, but also XDS too. That X Lab thing, you finally saw it in person. So
Yeah.
that's a segue right there. Let's talk about that bike. to me, from the show coverage, that was probably the most interesting bike that I saw at the show. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at it, it's like, oh, that's another high-end road bike. Whatever, no big deal. But it says X Lab on the down tube, which is a subsidiary, I guess you could say, or it's kind of the equivalent, like the S-Works equivalent to XDS, which XDS is a huge frame manufacturer in China, but they also make their own bikes at this point. And they recently bought a huge portion of sponsorship portion of the Astana cycling team, like the world tour team. And so they are a title sponsor. It's XDS-Astana this year, and they're riding XDS's two bikes, which is like the X-Lab A9, and then I forgot the name of the climbing bike. But yeah, you look at it and it looks finished for one, as all of these bikes do. It looks like it has all of these like modern aero cues. It's got like the kind of like the beak that like this specialized tarmac SL8 has. It's got like the requisite like aero seat posts. It's got basically everything that you would expect from a bike like that.
Yeah.
You just got to understand, like, this is a huge thing. It's a premium brand from China with the money backing it too, with huge money backing it.
Yeah. 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 The bike in person, this is the first time you've seen it in person. In person is as good as it looks in the photos. The thing looks pretty baller, if you ask me.
It looks pretty stinking good. Even though it's
Yeah.
like we weren't able to get specific pricing for the US, they would say that it's easily the least expensive bike in the world tour. But it looks the part. I think that's the big thing. And obviously we can't talk about ride impressions. We can't talk about how like everything feels or anything like that because we just haven't gotten our hands on it. But we hope to later this year. So.
Yeah. As far as bikes go, we generally don't see a ton of new bikes debuted at the Taipei Cycle Show. But from your point of view, since you were there and you saw all the things, weird folding things, all sorts of stuff, do you have a favorite bike that you saw? Or maybe a most interesting bike would be a better way to put it.
I mean, I don't think most people agree with me here, but it's the $500 carbon fiber kids bike.
Okay.
That's my favorite bike at the show.
$500 American.
$500 American. It's from Giant. So Giant made a push bike, so no drivetrain or anything like that. And it is their first carbon fiber kids bike.
It seems less expensive than I would have expected.
Yeah, it's less than half the price of the Specialized Carbon Hot Walk when that came out.
Cool.
But here's the thing. The reason why this is worthwhile before everyone turns off is because it is like a study of what can be made out of carbon fiber, because it's all made of recycled carbon fiber. Like the frame, the wheels, the handlebars, which I should mention, as far as I can tell, outside of Giant's like TT bikes, this is their first one-piece carbon handlebar. So
cool.
Yeah, who'd have thought it'd be on a kid's bike? Because Giant has been so adamant to not put it on their road and gravel bikes. They're all still two-piece. But yeah, so the frame is made of chopped up carbon fiber, recycled carbon fiber. There's, as far as I know, there's no other frame that is made out of recycled carbon fiber. And the closest thing I can think of in the bike industry that's made of recycled carbon fiber is Forge and Bond's like tire levers. So to go from tire lever to a weight-bearing frame is massive, for much less wheels and bars and a seat post,
Yeah. In the bike industry, people have been talking about recycling carbon fiber for many, many years, but people that actually do it, I don't think it's really a thing, except for the levers that you talked about. So my question, I guess, would be, is Giant's push bike relatively inexpensive because it uses recycled carbon, or is it inexpensive because it's Giant, or how does...
I mean, I won't comment on why other carbon fiber kids push bikes were as expensive as they were, but this one, I think, I don't think Giant's trying to sell a ton of these. I think if they sell a ton of them, that's like a happy accident. I think more than anything, it's a demonstration of what could be done with chopped up carbon fiber, which you got to realize like it's just not as strong because carbon fiber has these super long threads, carbon threads, and you need the carbon threads to facilitate strength. And so like if you have a bunch of them cut up, like you're relying on the resin for strength at this point.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple other things that make it interesting, like because it's injection molded, like compared to like a standard carbon fiber layup going into like a mold and to be heat treated, or to be baked essentially. Like this mold apparently was like 4 times the size because it undergoes so much more pressure than a standard carbon fiber thing. Which I think adds even more cost and that type of thing. So Giant says that they like not to anticipate this recycled carbon fiber in any of their frames anytime soon. But other components like rims or handlebars or seat posts, never say never. It looked really good.
Interesting. Yeah. Almost cool enough to make me want to get a kid.
Yeah, maybe.
Not quite though.
You can still get one. Well, not a kid. I'm saying the bike. You can get the bike. It's almost cheap enough to hang on your wall and say, look at all that recycled carbon fiber. And also there are other things that are recycled too. Like there's recycled fishnets in the tires, like the foam in the saddle was recycled, the grips, the material in the grips was recycled. Like,
oh, neat.
It's all very cool. So
yeah. I want to ask you about wheels.
Yeah.
There were a handful of interesting wheels at the show. Before I tell you what my personal favorite is, I want to know what you thought out there. What were you most interested in?
So I was pretty interested by Aviov has had my eye for a little bit because it's a Korean wheel company. They're not very big, but they caught my eye mostly because
this is my choice too.
Okay. Well, I have another one after this. So
no, keep going. Keep going.
The Aviov one. You know what? No, let's hear from you. Like, what caught your eye about it?
Honestly, just the mother of pearl overlay.
Yeah.
I just think that it is. So I remember when, there was not that long ago, like if you had tall carbon wheels, like it was a bit of a baller move, or any carbon wheels. Like nowadays, though, you get tons of these bikes are coming with their own carbon wheels from whether it's in-house or somebody else. So it's like less of a flex. Not that flexing matters, but I just think it's neat that this. Imagine being in a place where you spring for like the mother of pearl, like abalone. It's made of abalone, mollusks, and clam shells. I'm going to pronounce this wrong. You could correct me. It's the Korean art form it's called yaga. Is that maybe right?
I don't know. I didn't catch it very well, so we'll go with that.
Yeah. But anyway, so this yaga, I guess they put this mother of pearl overlay or inlay on all sorts of things. And now someone's done it on a set of wheels. And I just think that it is the ultimate flex. It's also good looking, and they're 1,200 gram, 50 millimeter tall aero wheels, which is cool. But there's lots of that out there. There are a lot of those.
Yeah, exactly. So to be fair, we did see these, like the first iteration of these wheels at Eurobike. And they didn't have a price at this point. They were basically just showing off their first pair of wheels. And the wheel set was heavy. Like it was a good 300 grams heavier than their normal carbon wheel set or something like that. So it was like 16 or 1,700 grams because it looked beautiful, but abalone shells add weight. Like there's no way around it.
Yeah.
And
I'm not saying I'd buy them.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of comments about how durable is this? And how good is this going to last? I don't care. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. The person who's buying this isn't buying this to beat on as a tool. They want it because it looks beautiful. And let's celebrate artistry in this instance. It looks amazing.
Yep. In a world where you could make a lot of practical decisions for 1 or 2 watts or this or that,
Yeah.
I like the fact that this is just coming from left field and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Talking more about wheels, for one, there was just carbon wheels everywhere. Like, just any brand you could think of that maybe you've seen, like, has been there. Like, Novatec had a huge booth, which Novatec's been around for a while, but they also are known for pretty budget-friendly carbon wheels. There are a lot of other brands that I mean, Black Tech had like another iteration on their like weird like 6-spoke wheels that they have
Mm,
that I didn't feature. It's yeah, it's
yeah. I looked up those wheels and they're not light by any stretch of the imagination.
no.
They look kind of neat. Are they more aero? Do you know what's the benefit of those crazy looking things?
You know, they've told me that it's like a stiffness thing. I am hesitant to believe that. I think it just looks cool.
Yeah. And
I think
Alvin,
I
I
think it
will
just looks cool.
say, if I'm going to be a fan of mother of pearl inlay that adds 3/4 of a pound to a rim weight, I
Yeah.
have to be okay with wheels just looking cool as well. I will
Yeah.
admit that.
Exactly. And I should mention that Aviav has gotten the weight down. That's been the next step on that mother of pearl wheel set, is that the wheel set
Oh,
weighs like 1,400 grams or something like that, which is
okay.
perfectly acceptable, I think, for that type of weight, or for what's going on there.
Do you have a
Um,
price on those things?
no, they don't have a price yet, but they will hopefully
It
this
can't be
spring.
cheap.
Yeah, no, I think that's very much the definition of like, if you have to ask, it's too much for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, Overfast had some wheels that I was pretty into. Like, they're sub 1,000 gram wheels with a 37 mil rim depth and a 23 mil internal, and it's hooked.
Is this the same Overfast that makes carbon through axles?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're expanding past the carbon through axles, and they showed off a couple, like a trio of well, really like 4 new things. And one of them was this wheel set, which um I didn't catch a price on them, but sub 1,000 gram wheels, like even 5 years ago, like if you were to look for a sub 1,000 gram road wheel set, chances are it was going to ride terribly.
Hmm.
And are these going to ride terribly? I have no idea. I hope to get my hands on them, but 37 mil rim depth, I think, should help a little bit with stiffness. Um,
That's
yeah, and
way taller than I would have expected you to say.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That's the big
Interesting.
thing.
Yeah.
37 with the hooked internal rim is not. I mean, that's impressive to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, I think the more impressive thing, they tell me that it's like that it's undergone all the testing to be UCI approved as a wheel
Okay.
set, which I think is pretty impressive too. Like the UCI wheel testing protocol isn't nothing. Like there are safety requirements
Yeah.
that they require. I don't see it on their approved wheel list yet, so we'll see if that gets added to the UCI list of approved wheels.
Alvin, Overfast also had something else crazy going on in their booth. I I want to know, are aero cranks, are they ahead of the curve with aero cranks? Is this going to be a thing? And describe what they look like for the people.
I mean, if you asked me 5 years ago if we were going to see aero tires, I would have said maybe in the periphery. And now it seems like more and more,
That's
like
true.
aero tires matter more and more. And like, like, I mean, most of the big wheel brands have them or tire brands have them at this point. I don't think we're going to see aero cranks. I'll just put myself out there. I'm pretty darn skeptical, but they sure look cool.
Yeah, they do look neat and they're not really heavy. Like they're still like 325 grams, which is what like a something around a red crankset
Yeah,
weighs. I
it's
don't know.
within 10 or 15 grams of a straight red crank arm for sure.
Yeah, so like on one hand, I want to make fun of this thing. They look like little wings, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, on one hand, I want to make fun of it, but on the other hand, if it weighs the same and, it's spinning around through the air, Like it kind of does make sense. Did they make any claims for watt savings or aero benefit or anything?
No.
Cool.
They did
My
not.
favorite.
Which is a-okay. I mean,
Yeah.
like I've heard so many people like bro science people say like if it looks aero, it probably is aero. There is some truth
Yeah.
to that. I personally don't know how many what kind of aero gains you can get out of a carbon crank arm with
Yeah.
so much turbulent air going around it like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
But, if you're looking for
Hey,
marginal gains, that could be one.
we both know a tech editor that would love a set of aero cranks.
Oh yeah, I think I know a guy, and if I get my hands on one, I'll send them their way because I think they'd be interested.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that I think has a lot more possibility of being a player now in the real world, more so than aero cranks. There are two Chinese drivetrain manufacturers that have come to the Taipei Cycle Show for many years with their electronic drivetrains. Let's start talking about Wheeltop first. I tinkered with a Wheeltop drivetrain how many years ago? 3 years ago, maybe? And that,
2019 is the video
oh,
that we
fuck.
have.
Really? Oh,
Man,
shit.
yeah, 2019, brother.
Oh, time flies. I remember that thing shifting so slow. Now, you got to tinker with it, the newest version. Tell me
Yeah.
about it.
So so I should mention like a bit of background on what Wheeltop is. So Wheeltop, Chinese like drivetrain manufacturer, I think is the best way of saying it. They have wireless derailleurs, wireless shifters. Last year I took a look at them because they had shifters for both hydraulic disc brakes and mechanical rim brakes. And so you could get electronic shifting with a rim brake, which who else was doing
Cool.
that? And
Yeah.
last year, the other thing that really drew me in is that they claim that through the app you can configure those derailleurs to shift anything between a 7-speed cassette to a 13-speed cassette. Which
That's pretty
like
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
people have been asking for like that type of compatibility from the other big players for ages.
Yeah.
And they show no interest in doing that, but Wheeltop's here doing it. So that's pretty cool. In the last year, they actually purchased Rotor, the Spanish like crank arm and
Yeah.
drive. They also made a drivetrain
They
at
have
one
their own
time, and
strange drivetrain.
yeah, they made the Uno group set, which is a hydraulically driven drivetrain, and power meters as well. And so now at their display, they have their Wheeltop group set and they have rotor cranks there, which is surprising. You wouldn't expect that. But this year they had three key group sets there. So they have their EDS lineup, which is their electronic drivetrain. It's like their trio of electronic drivetrains. And they have the TX, which is their road drivetrain. So it's 2x with the front and rear derailleurs and that type of thing. They have GEX, which sounds a lot like GRX, and it has a finish
That's
kind of like
clever.
SRAM GX.
Yeah.
At least early SRAM
I like
GX.
it.
And that's a 1x gravel drivetrain.
Okay.
And then they have their mountain bike drivetrain, which I don't remember the name of, but it's EDS something.
Okay. And all of this stuff shifts. It looks like it shifts like 1,000 times better than it used to. Like it looks like it works quite well.
It's properly quick, and the speed they tell me is adjustable through the app. I haven't been able to get my hands on the app quite yet, not until later this year, but theoretically you can make those shifts even faster through the app.
Why would the speed be adjustable, do you think? Why would you ever want to slow it down?
Well, I think that's a good question. If you look at like Shimano, they actually have like you can actually adjust in the eTube app. You can adjust how quickly the shifts happen. It is like kind of a security thing to some degree. You don't want to throw the chain too far because that's essentially what you're doing by moving the derailleur back and forth as you're throwing the chain around. You throw
Yeah.
it too far, it'll dislodge it, or it'll cause a clunky shift or something like that. I don't know. Um, anyways, like just in hand, like the levers and the derailleurs repaired, and like I couldn't discern them to be noticeably slower than Shimano or SRAM, much less Campagnolo. So
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. And now
yeah.
they can do anything from a 3-speed to a 14-speed cassette. I also read
That's
with the app.
that's what they told me. I also asked to confirm, like, hey, between 3 and 14 speeds, and they're like, yes. And I
That
don't
seems
know.
crazy.
We'll see. I'll have to see that before I believe it because they said 7 to 13 last year. So like,
Yeah.
but
So that means that these shifters, like you could set these shifters up to work with anybody's drivetrain, essentially.
if you really wanted to, you could theoretically put it on like a Brompton that has like a 4-speed derailleur or something like that.
Yeah.
You'd have to worry about clearance issues at that point with the derailleur hitting the ground, but you could do it, or you could put it on like I've got my Bianchi Volpe from the 80s in the garage that has 9-speed Campy levers and an 8-speed Shimano cassette, and it could shift that, which is awesome, you know?
Huh. Yeah, no, this sounds very, very cool. It's
Yeah.
obviously, I imagine it's not compatible with the derailleurs. The shifters don't talk to the other brand's derailleurs. It's only compatible with the cassettes, just to clarify.
Yeah, yeah. So it's only the derailleurs are only compatible within the Wheeltop like ecosystem. One interesting thing that they mentioned that I didn't really talk about is that like the mountain bike derailleur and the gravel derailleurs, even though they look almost exactly the same, like the parallelograms look exactly the same, they told me that they can't talk. They're not interchangeable. And I don't
Uh,
understand why that's the case. But for the most part, you have all kinds of like you can swap and mix and match however you want with Wheeltop.
yeah. Do you have a price with this stuff?
Yeah, if you go on their website, it's $5.99 for a derailleur and
So,
a pair of levers for the GEX.
oh, oh, really?
Yeah,
That makes
yeah,
you just want to buy them just to try them.
yeah.
That
So
sounds cool.
and that comes with a new brake caliper. So they have a new brake caliper. It's got that like gunmetal gray finish that I think looks pretty good. It's also a really small looking caliper. Like the piston itself looks really small, and then the body itself looks really small. But yeah, so we are getting a group set in. So
Okay. Do they offer a cassette as well too, or do you just gotta use your own?
they have cassettes available. So I will request everything that they have.
Yeah.
Like if they want whatever they want to send, including a rotor crankset, if they want to send that over, I'll gladly take it in because I want to try it all.
Yeah.
But
Very cool.
I'm also like definitely gonna put it on my personal bikes and or like at least swap wheels between those and my personal bikes.
I'm
So
I'm curious where, like, when you review this stuff, would you position it against stuff that's priced similarly, or I mean, there's not even a lot of stuff that's priced that low, to be honest, or is it wheel tops like ultra high end stuff? So like, do you compare the shifting to Dura Ace and Red, or do you compare the shifting to a much lower end group? I mean, I guess you just compare it to whatever it compares to, but I've just like the price to performance ratio on this has got me maximum interested.
yeah, exactly. And so that's so tough because frankly, Shimano's mechanical shifting, its latest generation of mechanical shifting is phenomenal. Like it
It's
is as
unreal, yeah.
good,
That
if not,
BMC I rode with
yeah,
you guys, I had Dura-Ace on it. Oh, so
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that's amazing. But even the like I had a Shimano GRX like mechanical cable pull drivetrain, and that shifted so well. It shifted
Oh yeah.
as well as like I mean, frankly, I thought it shifted as well as like the SRAM transmission equipped bikes that I have here. Like really, really good. And so, like, do you compare it to that? Do you compare it to 105 Di2? I don't really know because I think you have to take into context like the price. Like I know that last week when y'all were talking about tire, like I shouldn't like whether we should tell like readers if it's worth the price point that's being offered at. Like
Yeah.
I I I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna reckon with it yet, but I'm gonna try and take it in isolation, I think, and then go from there. What do you think,
Yeah.
Levy? How
I mean,
How
if
would you want
you
it?
have to compare it to stuff that it's priced against, or relative,
Yeah,
because I think in most worlds, that's how people shop. Like the people who shop for a $500 setup aren't the same people that shop for a, $2,500 drivetrain, right?
yeah,
So, but on the other hand, you're gonna have to talk. I mean, shifting under load over the past like few years, that's where SRAM and Shimano have both lifted the game hugely.
yeah,
Now, both groups, you could do whatever you want whenever you want. Almost, it's almost like an automatic transmission in a car. Like a semi-automatic transmission in a car. So
yeah,
for me, if this wheel top stuff or the L2 stuff that we'll talk about in a minute, if that has to shift really good under load, or similarly, or like 80% of the way there, because now my brain is wired to ride like that, like just like pedal like a giant ape and shift at the same time. And if I'm not going to go backwards, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I'm not going to start easing up under when I want to shift
yeah,
now because I don't have to.
yeah.
So it has to shift really good under load, or at least like 80% of what SRAM and Shimano can do. But also that comes from the chain and the cassette, right?
E-
So
exactly. Yeah, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a defender of big bike, like
yeah,
that is why like we have these closed ecosystems is so that you can control the shifting performance. Like
yeah,
Shimano's got all these ramps built into their cassettes that facilitate the shifts and they make sure that it happens cleanly and as a result, we have these buttery smooth, quick shifts that you can do under load. And Wheeltop, like saying, oh, you can put whatever 7-speed cassette you want on the bike, like that's almost certainly not going to shift as well. Like that would
yeah.
be a
But if
miracle.
you
God's hand would be moving that chain over. Like if
Well, what if you paired it though with a Shimano cassette and a Shimano chain, or a SRAM cassette and a SRAM chain? Then I think the testing could be endless here, but I think that would be maybe a combination that might be pretty interesting, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a period where the go-to move when SRAM Access came out was to pair it with a Hyperglide Shimano chain and
Oh,
cassette for a little bit,
I
right?
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that might be the answer here, or it might be that you take an L2 derailleur or something, or a cassette or something like that, and you port it over.
Yeah. So let's talk about L2. How are they different from Wheeltop, and what was your impression?
Yeah, so L2 doesn't have fully wireless drivetrains on their road and gravel bikes, at least not yet, in my opinion. So just like Wheeltop, they have a mountain bike drivetrain. That one is wireless, and then they have the gravel group, and then they have the road bike group, and then they also have a slew of mechanical drivetrains. That's how they got their start. Was with mechanical drivetrains and shifters that looked like a hybrid of SRAM double tap and Campagnolo, like 11-speed levers. Like they look
Mhm.
like the two of them put together. Anyways, the key thing here, so battery driven with wheel top, and I think, or with L2, and I think the other differentiating factor with L2 is that they feel relentless in how many updates they're pushing out. Like they are putting out multiple iterations of
Mhm.
derailleurs all the time. Like it feels like the L2 like electronic drivetrain, like the road electronic drivetrain, if I remember, has only been out 3 or 4 years, but there's been 3 iterations of it already.
Hmm.
So this newest iteration, for example, for this year, is they changed like it no longer charges from the rear derailleur anymore. It charges from the front derailleur, which are still connected together, and there's a battery that goes in the down tube. But the front derailleur's new port is actually USB-C, so you can charge it however you
Oh,
want.
very user friendly.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really good. And they cleaned up that rear derailleur, which I mean, the old plug it used to use a proprietary cable, so that's really cool. Um, the levers have been changed yet again. They're on their third iteration of levers. Like the buttons are a lot like clickier, frankly, and the lever just feels stiffer in general. Like the early iterations that I felt like if you were like pressing the smaller textured paddle, the entire lever, including the brake lever, felt like it was moving with you because it just wasn't very stiff. But this
Yep.
one feels very stout, very clicky, really impressive. They also improved the brake calipers for this year, so they're a monoblock or they're a one-piece design now. So it's instead of it being like bonded together in halves, and they were doing that because they said that there were a few users that were getting some like leakage
Okay. Yeah,
just
there's a
from them
seal there.
splitting open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
So
halves two
sealing.
together, so skip
Yeah.
that.
And so some people might consider that kind of like beta testing, like they're just putting out stuff before it's ready and that type of thing. And I won't necessarily comment on that, but they have been really responsive, I would say. And that is,
Yeah.
I think, really, that feels like a hallmark of L2 up to this point.
Okay. Alvin, what does it shift like compared to Wheeltop?
You know,
In the
again,
stand, we should just hold on. We got to asterisk this because you didn't actually. This is just in a stand, so you're not riding a bike around or anything like that. So
yeah. Yeah, so that's a good question. I think one thing to note is, especially because it's in the stand, you don't get the feedback of feeling it through your pedals or your feet. So that's
good
one
point.
thing. And then electronic drivetrain, like you get a click as opposed to like a direct cable pull. So you don't necessarily feel that as easily either.
Yep.
But honestly, in the stand, both of them felt as fast as anything else. They felt as like consistent as anything else, which it needs to be consistent because it's like electronic. Like that's one of the main reasons you
That's
have
the whole
electronic
thing.
shifting.
Yeah.
And again, it felt consistent. I have requested a group as well, so we'll see there how that goes. But yeah, I mean, just in the stand, like again, the levers felt really good. Like they felt stout and sturdy. Like the springs and the pull, like it felt pretty dialed, I would say. Yeah, I
Price wise, similar to Wheeltop.
it's a little bit more. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I want to say it's like $7.99
Okay.
for levers and derailleurs, um, which is still cheaper than 105 Di2 as a point
Yeah.
of comparison. Definitely at MSRP, but if you were to buy a Shimano 105 Di2 off of like an online seller or something like that, you can get it for closer to like $1,200 or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
still pretty
Interesting
pretty
things
good.
coming.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, we'll have it coming. I'm eager to put them side by side and see
Yeah.
what they're like. And yeah,
For me, I know it's like you said, I don't want to sound like I'm defending like so-called big bike, but like modern drivetrains, they shift so good. And it's like how could this be? It's almost like how can this be as good for the price? But if it's like I said, 80% of the way there, it'll be interesting in itself. So it'll be
yeah,
cool to see when you get those.
yeah. I mean,
And I like
they've
an
got to
underdog.
be. I think they've to not to be grasping at like semantics or anything like that. They've got to be more than 80%. It's got to be like 90 to 95% of the way there. Like
Yeah.
and I think like the user friendliness has to be there for sure too. Like you can't be dealing with bugs, which is something that I've got to give it to SRAM and Shimano. Like those derailleurs and those systems haven't been buggy. They're not especially challenging to set up, especially now that Shimano's gone partially wireless.
Yep.
Yeah, and these guys have to match it. So
Yeah.
eager to see if that happens.
Exactly. Okay, Alvin, before we wrap this thing up, I want you to tell me about one other thing at the show that you thought was really, really interesting. And then I have one as well.
Okay, I feel like I've been avoiding this up to this point and avoiding it in our coverage in general, frankly. But I've got to talk about these wild cranks that say they increase your power by 50%. I don't know if
How
you
could
caught
that be
that.
possible? Is there a motor? How does this work?
No, there's no motor. And Jesse May Morgan and I like sat with the creator of these W Force, like I think they're called power booster cranks or something like that. We were with that guy for basically 40 minutes. And like it's on us for not being able to speak his language, right? and
Yeah.
he spoke enough English to help us kind of get to some of the answers that we needed, but like it was tough, honestly, to figure stuff out. But basically, the best way, so it claims 50% increased power, and basically the best way I can think of how it does it is by effectively acting like it's moving the bottom bracket of your bike forward. So it essentially, like, you have your crank, and then you have an extension to the crank arm where your pedals come in, and that stays basically parallel to the ground as you pedal. So back and on both sides, it stays parallel to the ground. And doing so, I think the idea is that it gives you additional leverage as you're pedaling along, but it doesn't really give you any additional leverage because the length doesn't change as you're pedaling. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
yeah, and
I am not gonna lie, I don't understand how this could possibly work.
yeah, and it was interesting because they had a pair of bikes on trainers side by side, one with the power booster crank and one without it, and I couldn't really feel a difference. I couldn't really feel a difference. Like, if I were grasping at straws, like, perhaps it felt a little bit easier on the bike that was equipped with the special crank, but overall, I feel like I couldn't feel a difference. And I think it's an interesting concept. I think it's an interesting idea, but I don't trust the science behind it.
Yeah, that's good.
Because
I don't think you should.
I mean, there's no additional leverage there. Like, and
Yeah.
sound off in the comments, tell me if I'm wrong. Like, someone please explain it. But like, my basic understanding of physics, like, there's no additional leverage.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like, you never want to shit on somebody's idea, project, baby, like whatever it might be, you know? But
Absolutely.
at the same time, like, you have to look at this and be like, well, wait a minute. How does this work? You're not tricking me. Not that they are trying to trick anybody, but
Yeah.
yeah, I read the thing and I looked at them and, like, obviously, like, I'll preface this by saying, like, I don't understand many things. I barely understand anything, but I definitely didn't understand how these cranks work. Like, they're hollow and there's like a gear inside or something, and like,
Yeah, so to keep both sides of those extensions like parallel to the ground, there's basically a drive shaft going through the crank arms to keep everything in gear. So there's the drive shaft on one side that's keeping one pedal level, and then there's a
yeah,
drive shaft on the, like, basically at the bottom bracket that's keeping those synchronized, essentially. So there's a drive shaft on each side. And there's a couple other interesting things that are going on. Like, there's this built-in, like, it's not necessarily like flex, but as you pedal down, like on your downstroke, the pedal is designed, like the extension of the pedal, like, kind of, it's supposed to increase your leverage further by like pushing, like helping it push down more. I've got photos up on Velo. We'll link it down below and all of
yeah,
that, and in our video as well. But overall, like, even if it did increase something, like, you're in power, like, I don't think it'd be 50%. And then there's also the question of like drivetrain losses, just because there's more stuff to flex and there's more gears that you have
gears
to
and
work
shit.
through.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I think it would just be easier to put a little motor on, buddy. Just put a little motor down there if you're gonna cheat, because they claim 50% more power of whatever power you're putting out, or something like that. It would be way easier just to put a little motor in there. If you're gonna
Yeah.
cheat.
Exactly. And so I would like someone to prove us wrong, but Jesse May and
Yeah.
I, like, sat there and talked about it and scrutinized it as best as we could. And then Jesse May went to Seb Stott at Pink Bike, who has a PhD in physics, and
Yeah.
helped us decipher our intuition that there's stuff awry with this. And my first thought was, oh, it's offsetting the bottom bracket. That doesn't do anything. And that was essentially what he said too. So
Yeah. Seb is the answer for that. Seb Stott is the answer for those cranks.
Yeah,
for sure.
And again, if we're wrong, please sound off. Let us know. But
Yeah, I love the
that
aero.
was probably
Tell me.
one of the most interesting things that I saw at the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you my most interesting thing now. This is actually your coverage. You found it. And this was, it's kind of dorky. This is Velo's, I should say it's the Velo Saddle Company, not Velo, the website.
Yeah.
AI enabled camera that's hidden under the seat. So, I read your thing. Um, Basically what it sounds like is there, it kind of works like a Garmin radar light, and it will talk to your computer and your grips, and I'll explain that in a minute. So when a car is coming up, the camera could tell you that it's coming, and it's connected to the grips. And if the car is on the left, your left grip vibrates, and if the car is on your right, the right grip vibrates. And that is super dorky commuter thing, and I absolutely love it. That sounds cool. Did I
Yeah,
get it right?
yes, yeah, you got it right. And there's also lights built into the grips and the sides of the bike. So if there is a car coming on your left, like you'll feel it in your grip, but also the lights on the left side of your bike will start illuminating to
Cool.
let them know, which I don't know. We're not going to see it in the world tour anytime soon, right?
No, no,
Right? Like
no.
that's not going to be a thing, but I think it's legitimately cool. And then you have the video display as well. So you have if you've driven like a modern car in recent memory, like when you have your backup camera or something like that, it might have some sort of like collision avoidance system where on the camera it'll tell you if a car is coming from the left or the right or something like that.
Yeah.
And it'll do that through the camera. It'll like stream to, they had a phone basically there, which I would assume that they're going to figure out some other sort of display. Maybe they'll have it through your phone. But yeah, it looked, I mean, it was cool.
Neat.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's sweet.
It's for like a commuter e-bike kind of scenario. And I personally I'm not a huge mirror fan either, to be honest, because I find
Yeah.
people just stare in the mirrors all the time.
Yeah.
Look where you're going. So I can also see people just staring down into their little video screens, wherever that may be. But I just thought it was neat to see. It was
Exactly.
cool.
There are
So,
enough people staring at their cameras on group rides or their computers on group rides as it is, trying to make
yeah,
sure that they're
exactly.
staying within their power zones and
Yeah.
staying within zone. And I don't know. I think it's cool. The thing that they told me that I did not publish is that they anticipate this coming out within the next year, like a
Oh, cool.
finalized, polished version of this. Yeah, I would also, I don't know how exactly they're going to integrate this, if they're going to partner with another e-bike brand, but given Velo's size, not us, to be fair, but Velo, that company's size, I wouldn't be surprised if it was part of like their own e-bike platform.
Yeah, and integrated into a seat, I would imagine somehow.
Yeah.
That would obviously make all the sense in the world. So,
Yeah, exactly.
anyways, Alvin, thank you for the coverage. I want to let you go because I don't think you've slept for like 4 days since you got on the plane to leave Taiwan. So we're going to let you go, but thank you for all the coverage. And everybody that's listening, there's a bunch of coverage on the Velo homepage, tons of articles from Alvin and Shoddy Dave and a bunch from Jesse, May, Morgan as well, all covering the new bikes and the tech and weird and the wacky and the wonderful from the Taipei Cycle Show. So make sure you go to the Velo homepage to check that out and let us know what you think of the coverage in the comments below on this video. And we'll see you next week.